Hi, I'm Rachel Olson, founder of Best Mom Products, where mompreneurs share their adventures in business. Today I'm talking with Michelle Staley, founder of Busy Breathers, an oxygen-carrying backpack. When Michelle's son Ty was born 3 months premature and needed oxygen around the clock for 2 years, Michelle decided there had to be a better way to manage oxygen, diapers, bottles, and all the stuff that goes along with carrying a baby. Today we'll learn her approach to getting her product into over 75 Walgreen stores in Colorado, her success in being one of the first Huggies Mom-Inspired Grant recipients, and what that meant for her business. Michelle, yours is truly a touching story, so thank you for sharing it with us today. Are you ready to get started?
I am. I'm excited.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for being here, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about your story and how the idea came to you?
Well, as Rachel had said, our son, Ty, was born 3 months early. It was a very difficult, scary time. We actually were told... Sorry about that. We were actually told he wasn't going to make it. And he spent 4 months in the NICU. And we were overjoyed, excited to finally be able to bring him home. But when Ty came home, he was still on oxygen when we left the hospital. And that's our life support. We had to lug it around everywhere we went. And when we originally came home, if you see those big pull carts that people pull around that are on oxygen, that's what we were originally sent home with. And then when they said, oh, you can go to a more portable style oxygen cylinder, of course we were thrilled about that. But it was difficult too, because typically what gets sent home with people, at least before I got my product to the market, is a bag that basically it's just big enough to carry the cylinder. It goes over your shoulder, like a shoulder bag kind of, and that's how you carry the oxygen. So I just got very, very frustrated with carrying it around. It would fall off my arm. You know, especially having a baby, you're trying to carry multiple things, a diaper bag, your child, you know, and plus I was a first-time mom, so I thought I had to carry everything but the kitchen sink. And so it was just very difficult, and you're trying to carry either the baby or the baby in the, you know, in the carrier. And so I just got really frustrated and went online and tried to find a backpack that would carry multiple things, and I couldn't find it at the time. So, and I was also thinking about starting my own business because Ty's health wasn't good enough for me to work outside of the home, and so kind of put 2 and 2 together, and it's how it kind of came about.
Okay, fascinating. Know that this type of backpack was what you wanted to create when you were going to start a business, and what's one of the first things that you did to research it, and what was that process like?
Actually, when I originally was thinking about starting a business, my cousin and I were both stay-at-home moms, and we were looking at doing cute little onesies with cute little sayings on the bums, and that's what I was originally looking at doing. And I put Ty to bed one night when I stayed with her. We'd been talking business ideas, and I laid Ty down, and I laid the oxygen down beside him, and I was like, I'm just so tired of lugging this bag around. Like, there has to be something better out there. And it was almost like a light bulb went off, and I was like, so the next day, I told my cousin, I think I have a better idea, and I went online to try to find a multifunctional oxygen user backpack and couldn't find it. And so that's kind of what started the process. And so started drawing up designs and different features that I'd like to have, and that's kind of what started it.
Okay, and where did you go from there?
Actually, we had my aunt's boyfriend at the time owned a company that did, like, you could do cups or pins or bags for, like, companies and put logos on them. And so I really wasn't sure where to go in the manufacturing process, how I'd even get a bag, you know, made, let alone one that would carry oxygen. So I talked to my aunt's boyfriend, and I said, do you think your company could do it? Because they were overseas. And he said, well, we could try it out, because it's made out of special material and so forth, and see what we can do. And sure enough, we drew up the specs as far as what we wanted, and they did a prototype for us, and that's where we got the first prototype from.
Wow. So that was interesting. So it was that company, and then did you write it up yourself, the specs? Did you hire somebody to professionally do that?
No, actually, my cousin and I wrote up the specs ourselves. We just, drew up a blueprint, and, I did have a little bit of design in my background because that's where I went to school for And so that's kind of how it came about. But,
okay. What kind of design did you go to school for?
I had won a full ride scholarship to Colorado Institute of Art, and I took their fashion merchandising program there. So that's what I have my associates in. So
okay, I find it interesting because everyone I interview always has a strength in their background that they play on. So yours is design. I'm sure many other strengths as well. Okay, so tell me a little bit about the next step. Let's go through the manufacturing process, and then we can talk about some other things as well.
Well, we didn't actually end up going with that manufacturer. I mean, like everybody else's stories, there's always hurdles and there's things that fall apart. And I knew that we'd need to find funding to get it going. And I didn't have any funds of my own. It's not like I had a big savings account or had any money to pull from or resources to pull from. And so we kind of just sat stagnant for just a little bit. And to be honest, I don't remember why we didn't go with the first manufacturer. I just think it wasn't the right fit or something. So then, long story short, my cousin and I kind of parted ways, and I decided to kind of go off on my own and continue on the process. And she had met someone that actually was in the bag manufacturing business himself, and so I was connected to another bag manufacturer in China that did backpacks. And so I already had the first prototype, so we tweaked it a little bit, and then that's when I went in and did my first manufacturing run, and I found the funding, and so that was probably about a year and a half after I came up with the original concept. So
okay. And how did you find the funding? I think you had an interesting story you told me, I think, when we talked about a friend that was a banker.
I had lots of friends and family that thought what I was wanting to do was fabulous, but it's always a little bit scary. Even if you think it's a fabulous idea, especially when it comes to family members, to turn your money over to them and say, run with it, because there's always the possibility it won't work out. And so I went to this banker, and it's called the Northeastern Colorado Revolving Loan Fund, and I think they are nationwide, but it's basically set up for people that can't get traditional funding, which I couldn't get traditional funding because I really didn't have anything for collateral or any money to put up myself. I went and talked to them, and they turned me down. They just, said it wasn't a right fit. We'd love to help you. We think it's a great idea. And in the whole process, I had been talking to the oxygen company that serviced Tide, that brought our oxygen, and was actually talking to the vice president there to see if they would actually be interested in my product, because I wanted to be able to go to a bank or someone to say, hey, I have, one of the biggest oxygen companies that's interested in it. Mm-hmm. So never really gave up, and I finally decided to go talk to a friend of mine that was a banker at one of the small banks, not too far from where I live, and said, I really believe in my product. I'm talking to this vice president. They believe in it. They say they'll purchase it. I mean, I didn't have a purchase order at the time, but just kind of their word saying, yes, yeah, we'll do it. And he said, Michelle, he goes, I'm going to talk to the gentleman over at Northeastern Colorado Revolving Loan Fund. And I said, I've already talked to them. They turned me down, I don't know, it might have been 6 to 8 months prior to that. And he goes, I'm just going to call him. Well, the next thing I knew, I don't know if it made a difference because I had another, president of a bank calling. They wanted to see what they could do for me. So at that time, they wanted a co-signer, and I had an aunt and uncle that have been huge supporters of mine through this whole process. They were like, we'll co-sign for you. Well, they had some things happen, so that fell apart. Okay. So I had no co-signer. Well, I was still trying to find funding to figure out what I was going to do, and the banker called me back one day, and he goes, how you doing, Michelle? And I said, oh, I'm good, still plugging away. And he said, well, I'm feeling risky today. I feel like taking a risk. And I go, really? I go, what do you mean, Dan? And he goes, well, we're going to do the loan. Basically did the loan with no co-signer, just faith in my product, and I guess, wanting to bring it to market. So that's kind of how it came about.
That's amazing. Were you ecstatic when you got that phone call?
Yeah, I was just thrilled. I mean, through the whole process, I never thought it's never going to happen. I always just thought it'll work out one way or another, and it did. So
what a great outlook. So what did you do once you got that loan? What did you do with that money?
Went ahead and we started the manufacturing process because I had to put half down when they started it, and then there was some delays in the manufacturing process. I mean, it was only supposed to take about 3 months, and I think it ended up taking like 5 to 6 months by the time it was all said and done. And so basically the loan that I got was, I had a little bit of leeway, but it was basically just enough to cover my manufacturing.
Okay. And tell me again, did you tell us what was the first, how many units were in the first manufacturing run that you did?
1,400 bags.
Okay. And so did you have customers lined up at that point, or you just had people that were interested at that point?
I had people that were interested. So it's not like I had any purchase orders, but I had, like I said, the biggest oxygen company that had over 1,000 locations, and their end user are their oxygen users. So
yep.
That's what it has.
Okay, so you get the product made, and it's shipped and delivered. And was that process, other than the few delays in the beginning, pretty smooth for you?
Actually, no. It was a difficult process. There's some things that I can't really go into about the whole process, but long story short, the person that I got involved with to meet this manufacturer, it just was not a good fit.
Okay.
And to say lightly, it was not a good fit, and so there was a lot of stress along with that, because I knew that I had this production run going, but I wasn't for sure if there was going to be issues there, and so it was kind of a long process.
Okay. We can leave it at that. Okay, so now you get your product. What do you do with it?
Well, I set up my own website so I could retail to customers, and then to get it into the Lynn Care locations that I was selling into, basically when it was kind of interesting, I have an interesting story. When the bags came, they were delivered in the middle of a big blizzard here in Colorado on a big truck. And we had to, I lived in a really tiny house, so we had to offload all of the bags in the blizzard into my in-laws' basement. And basically it was myself, my husband, my father-in-law, and my dad and I. Oh, and Ty helped out too. We offloaded 140 boxes of bags during the blizzard.
Oh my gosh.
So that was kind of the start of it. And then once the bags came in, then I started doing what are called e-blasts, and set up a flyer. I'm trying to think here, this is taking me way back, but the president of Lynn Care actually had sent out a mass email to all of the store locations introducing my product. They got me put in the system, letting, all their store locations know that my product was available. And then I did an e-blast to all the different locations, a flyer basically saying, the features of my bag, why they'd want to purchase it. And at this point, I wasn't set up EDI, so anytime they wanted to send an order over, they had to fax it over to me.
Okay.
So it was I felt like it was old school, but it was what we had to do at the time. And when I first started selling, I sold like 200 bags right off the bat, and I was just ecstatic. But I also didn't quite know 100% what I didn't have. Looking back, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I didn't have shipping boxes. I don't, looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? I didn't have shipping boxes. I shipped everything from the post office, and you only have X amount of time to get the product out. So, I actually had my person that helps me with my QuickBooks, my instructor from the college. She was helping me get orders put together. So it was kind of a crazy process, but I don't know if I could have prepared myself anyhow. I think that's the way I kind of had to do it and just learn. Mm-hmm. And so after when I sold the first 200 bags, then I obviously got a UPS account. And so I can definitely tell people probably not the correct way to do it, get a little more prepared, but it happened so quickly at that point. So.
Right, but that's exciting. You sold the 200 bags right away. Did you think wow, this is going to be so easy?
Yeah, I did. I thought, oh my gosh, they're ordering bags. And then I did think it was going to be easy. I was like, wow, I've got my product in with one of the biggest oxygen manufacturers oxygen delivery companies out there. And, I was doing e-blasts once a month, and, they would fax orders over. Really, they had 1,000 stores. So I was like, oh my gosh, even if I just sold to, a quarter of them every month, or, I maybe I should have looked at it bigger. I was like, I wasn't thinking, I have to sell in every store, but I was like, gosh, if I sell in half of them and sell 3 or 4 bags per order. But what I didn't know then is the bags that they typically send home with people on oxygen, they can get those a lot cheaper. My bags, kind of like the Cadillac version. And so what they get reimbursed on, they look at the oxygen bags as not being a necessity but a luxury.
Wow.
So, even though there's still locations that order from me because they really care about their patients and they want to give them the best product, but in some ways they're kind of eating the cost on my product. So, it was just, and trying to manage it all on my own too.
Yeah, let me ask you something. I'm curious. If they look at an oxygen bag as a luxury and not a necessity, what do they give to people when they have to leave the hospital? They don't just hand you an oxygen tank.
They don't, but they don't. They'll send you home with the over the shoulder bag like they sent me home with.
Okay.
And there's really not much to them. They're just a sleeve with a handle, and the cost on those is very minimal.
Okay.
My bag has extra pockets, special features.
So when you realized that the oxygen distribution companies didn't necessarily want to eat the cost of a higher end luxury bag, what did you do differently?
That's when I started thinking outside of the box a little bit. And when I originally started selling to Lincare, I'll have to tell you a little history here. When I originally started selling to them, I would ship everything from my house. I warehoused everything. I drop shipped everything to the locations. Well, in the meantime, the president of Lincare introduced me to a president of another company, or a vice president of another company. They had both worked in the oxygen world together for 20 plus years. They were friends. And this company he introduced me to also sells to oxygen companies, different types of bags, different types of medical products. And so he just thought it would be a good introduction for us to meet each other and start talking to each other one-on-one, because he knew he could get my foot in the door with other companies rather than me picking up the phone, cold calling, saying I have this product, instead of trying to get into other companies that way. And so they started purchasing bags from me, and then they would go out and sell them to other oxygen companies. And I was still selling to Lincare, even though they could sell to Lincare, but I made more per bag when I sold to Lincare directly. Well, the sales started kind of dropping off, and it was just, because I was trying to do e-blasts, and I didn't have the big marketing budget like a big company would. So the vice president of my wholesale company that I work with, he's kind of like my mentor, actually, and I got to talking to him, and I said, maybe it would make more sense for you to market to Lincare because you have the bigger marketing budget, and also they're on the same AS400 system, so anytime they go into order any products, my product would be in their system.
Oh, interesting.
And so I kind of handed it over to them, even though I made less amount of money per bag. That was totally my decision. It just made more sense to kind of streamline it that way. Well, they were continually trying to sell to different oxygen companies, but I still felt it like it was my baby and I needed to create more customers. And I don't sell a lot of bags off of my website per se. Okay. And, once again, it's that marketing budget. And so the wheels started churning, and I kept having people ask me, well, where can we go get your bag and look at it? We want to pick it up and see it and feel it. And so that's when I started thinking I need to get into a big box retailer, such as Walgreens or whatever. And I went to a big trade show in Atlanta to try to get my foot in the door with other big box retailers, drugstore companies, different things like that. And it was more of a gifting show, so it really wasn't the right fit for my product.
Okay.
And so I came back from there. I hadn't sold one bag. And I finally just decided, I'm going to go in and talk to the manager at our local Walgreens. So I went in and talked to him. I actually had Ty with me, but I had done my hair and makeup for the day because I was out and about. You know how it is when you work from home some days. And I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I went in and took my bag into the manager and said, hey, I don't know if you have the capability to bring in products into your locations? And he goes, some managers can. Some of the store managers, if they see a product they want to bring in, they can. So by the time I left there that day, he said, sure. He goes, let's bring in some bags, get you set up. And then, he, of course, gave me the information where I needed to go in and fill out all the paperwork to get set up to do, to get my vendor number. And so that's kind of what started the process there.
Okay, that's fascinating to me because you went to the trade show, not much success there. And just by going in to talk to your local Walgreens, you learn that each store is managed differently. And some managers do have the approval to go ahead and bring whatever products they see fit in.
They do. They do not in location, but some do.
Right. So how did you feel after that?
I was really excited because, half the battle is getting your foot in the door and getting a vendor number. And the manager down here at our local Walgreens is he's fabulous. Like, he's been wonderful to work with. He's still wonderful to work with. And so basically what I did, once I got a vendor number, I put a packet of information together, and then I drove to probably about 10 different Walgreens in this district. Some of the managers were like, sure, we'll bring you in. Some of them are like, well, we need to get district approval before you bring you in. But it helped that I had a vendor number.
Okay.
Someone just walking in off the street, even though that's what I did at my local Walgreens, but it did help.
Right, because when you have a vendor number, they know that you're set up in the system already and that it would be easy to order from you. Is that the benefits of it?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So, and that's basically how I got into the first 10. And then by talking to the local manager here, he said, really, if you want to get into more locations, you need to get your foot in the door with the district managers. And he actually took my product to one of the district meetings and told him about it and, raved about it. And so then I did my own due diligence and followed up with the district managers and actually spoke to the gatekeepers, their admin assistants, and got to know them very well. And there's 4 different district managers, so I put together a huge binder of any press that would have been done about my product, my vendor number, the benefits, why people that would walk into their store would want to purchase it. And what helps me is they carry direct medical equipment anyhow, so it was a perfect fit for there. And so I sent the district managers each this huge binder of information. I don't know, maybe a month and a half after I sent those binders, and kept calling the gatekeepers. And I think they wanted to see how the sales were going in the other 10 locations. And so in one day I had one district manager call and saying that her and another district manager wanted to bring my product into their location. So I got into 65 more stores just like that within 2 phone calls. So
your products are in these stores. Do they buy them outright? Or I think you had mentioned before it was something like a buyback?
Well, in order to get your foot in the door with Walgreens, you have to do guaranteed sales, so that if the product doesn't sell, that you'll buy back the product. So far, I haven't run into that. Some of those store locations, what I did find, it wasn't the right fit for every location. It just depends on the demographics that come into the locations. I mean, even though my product is for all ages, I've found that some of the stores they were moving, some of the stores they weren't moving. It may be that, the way the managers were promoting it. Like, obviously, at my local Walgreens, they're very good about promoting my products. So, but what they were doing is intercompanying my bags. So if some of the store locations weren't selling, but some were selling, instead of reordering from me, they would just move product and intercompany. And so far, that's kind of what happened. Like, my sales with Walgreens has not been, it has not been steady by any means. And I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do at this point, actually.
Okay. Have you approached other drugstores and...
I haven't approached other drugstores at this point just because I'm, kind of taking a risk getting into Walgreens, even though it's an amazing thing. I mean, I was hoping to go nationwide with it, work my way from Colorado and then hopefully go like within a region and then work that way. But like I said, I think I almost need a sales force to stay on top of it, to be able to go in, make sure they have my product set up correctly. I mean, I actually filmed like a infomercial style video kind of, and they set those up in most of the locations so that when people walk by the television, it would tell them this is what the product is, this is who it's for, because sometimes people with the bag just sitting there, they didn't they didn't understand what the product was. So I don't really know. I'm not for sure going into the big box retailer was the right fit for me, unfortunately. To be honest.
But you definitely had some success. I mean, it's not easy to get your foot in the door at a Walgreens, let alone 75. And it sounds like the biggest challenge you're having really is customer awareness. And that takes a lot of money and a lot of marketing dollars. And I know that you had said there's two things that I wanted to talk about. One was you were one of the first winners of the Huggies Mom-Inspired Grants for, I think, $15,000. So I want to hear that story, and also Shark Tank and your thoughts on that, because I know that you were one of the runner-ups, correct? You were in the final stages.
Yeah, I've been contacted twice by them, and the last time I was in one of the final stages, but didn't get selected. And so, do you want me to start with Huggies? Or you want me to go
let's talk about Huggies first.
Okay. Well, Huggies, it was such an honor to be recognized by a big company and to be able to put that stamp of approval on my product. I found out about the grant process kind of in an ironic way. I do a lot of stuff on Twitter for my business, and actually saw a tweet come across from Maria Bailey, and she was looking for 3 women that either had a product on the market, looking to get a product on the market, and wanted to interview, set up a conference call type interview, and you were going to be interviewed by a panel of people. And so I tweeted her right back and said, hey, I'm interested. I'd love to, take part. And so had this phone call. I had no idea who we were talking to, and just was excited that I was included in it and recognized for, my hard work and everything. And so a few months after that, I saw a tweet that went across Twitter, and it was from Huggies, announcing that they were doing this big grant process, $15,000 grant. And I thought, because I wasn't for sure who we were talking to, but I kind of caught through, I don't even know how it came down, through the pipe, that maybe it was Huggies we were talking to on the phone, or I don't, a panel. But anyhow, I saw this tweet come across, and so I sent Maria a private message. I DM'd her and said, hey, does this have anything to do with that conference call I was on a few months back? And she goes, yeah. She goes, it does. She said, you were actually talking to people from Kimberly-Clark and Huggies. Well, even though I was talking to them at that point, that still didn't give me guaranteed status that I'd win the grant from them. So I had to, apply just like everybody else. And, I'm losing time frame here, how long it took. But I applied for the grant, and I would say it was 3 months later, got a phone call from one of the big wigs at Kimberly-Clark congratulating me that I'd won the grant. And it was, very exciting because, when you're a small business, cash flow is so difficult. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I got $15,000 to do some marketing and try to, take my business to another level. So it was, and just to be recognized. And there's other, 13 other women that have grants too that that I got to meet, and just, we've kind of developed a sisterhood we keep in touch with each other, and we got to meet, Kimberly-Clark was very gracious and flew us out, and we all got to their headquarters, and we got to meet and be wined and dined and partake in a bunch of events, and somewhat still taking part of events, because now they've had, second group of Huggies Mom winners, and actually I'm going to see some of them tomorrow because I'm going to an event up in Denver called Spark and Hustle.
Yeah, I wanted to actually ask you about that. I noticed that you were a host, or you are a host. So
yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your grant, and I want to hear too what that money went towards. But let's talk about. So you're going to get to see them tomorrow. How did you get involved with Spark and Hustle?
Well, just like anything else, I see something that comes across the feed, and so I saw an email that came out, and they said if you're interested in being a host, contact us. So that's what I did, and I had to get just a certain amount of people to register under my name if they heard about Spark and Hustle through me. And I'm not really sure. I know we can do a roundtable discussion at lunchtime as a host, and just be a little bit more involved with the program. So, and then also I knew about the event because some of the Huggies moms there's actually 5 of us locally here in Colorado, and they were talking about it, and so that's kind of how that came about. So.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so let's go back. So what did you do when you received the grant? What did you use that money towards? And did you have to tell them beforehand what you had planned to use it towards?
You know, they weren't real strict with their guidelines. It was actually rather, the process was, you know, it was very easy, and, you know, we didn't have to tell them. I mean, you know, obviously in the application, I knew that marketing was going to be one of my biggest ways I was going to try to market my program. And, you know, I did the course on the big box retail course. That's how I spent some of my money. I did some marketing with it, and then actually had to do some catch up with some of the grant funding because, you know, month to month it's not real steady. So you think $15,000 is a lot of money, which it is. I mean, to get a grant that size, there's not a lot of grant programs like that, but it doesn't take long when you're trying to do different programs or trying to do different marketing. I mean, I marketed it in the Bump. Have you heard of the Bump?
Yeah, I have. How did that work out for you?
You know, I got some exposure. We actually did it in LA, and because the person that I worked with said that would be a bigger demographic for me. And, you know, I got some contacts from it. Like I said, my product's such a niche product. You know, I tested and tried some different things, but I'm not sure that was, you know, I didn't see a big windfall from that by any means.
Let me ask you something. I noticed that you were also one of the best new tech products 2011 for Contemporary Pediatrics magazine. What did something like that do for your product? I mean, that seems like it's more your target demographic.
You know, it's just a matter of getting that stamp of approval and that recognition. And, you know, like I said, I haven't had a huge windfall, but at least to have that behind me, you know, if I do get it within my marketing budget to do some more marketing, that I had that stamp of approval and just being recognized by, you know, it was such an honor. And I'm able to say, you know, to different companies, if I'm broaching them now, I was recognized, you know, by Contemporary Pediatrics, and also there's more, you know, doctors that know about my product now.
Right. What about selling direct to hospitals, or do you have to go through a distributor for that?
The hospitals have been a little bit tricky. There's a lot of red tape, and what I have found, you know, the hospital where Ty was born, they've been very good about, they can't really promote because then it looks like they're specifically promoting a product, but like the respiratory staff, the NICU staff, the doctors, you know, now their gift shop sell me. They put in a new gift shop called Resource there, and there's probably about 6 of them nationwide, and some of them do carry me. They've been really good about referring people and bringing me in, especially where my son was born at the hospital, and they want to offer products. It's not your typical gift shop. It really has products that help people with a certain need, and so they've been really good about promoting my product. Children's Hospital locally here in Colorado, it was hard. It was like fighting tooth and nail. I mean, I donated products, I spoke at events, and they would let, you know, I could give the customers brochures at that point, but they wouldn't let me leave any literature. So I think trying to get in through the medical equipment company, which I think I'm always shifting gears, trying to reinvent the wheel, and I kind of went back to, I think I need to really just focus in on the companies that sell my product specifically, and that's where my end user is. So,
right. Interesting. No, this is good. You sound like you try a lot of different marketing tactics and going after different target markets to really figure out the best way to sell to your customer. And you've learned, it sounds like, that, you know, you need a more customer awareness, that maybe sales aren't as strong on your website, but they are through the distributors, and kind of reevaluating the big box. So this is all really good information, so thank you for sharing. So you had the mom, you know, you've won a lot of these awards, and to me it sounds like you've had so much support throughout this time, you know, from the manager at Walgreens to the banker who called you. It sounds like one of your strengths definitely is building these really good relationships, and with the admins. You know, I feel like by doing that, you've been able to grow and just keep creating more contacts. How important do you think is relationship building throughout this process?
Obviously, it's been huge for me because, you know, and because I haven't had a huge business account to just, you know, do this marketing and do this marketing. I've had to not be afraid to just get on the phone and call a vice president of a company. I mean, I got into Apria Direct, which is one of the biggest medical suppliers here a few months. Well, I guess it's been about 4 months ago now. You know, I've been trying to get my foot in the door with them for 2 years, and I finally just decided I'm going to pick up the phone and call again. And so I finally got put through to the right person, and I don't have problems talking to the vice presidents of companies because I believe in my product, and, you know, I know that it'll help their customers, and it's just doing that, your own due diligence. I mean, I've had to be very scrappy and be very smart about things when it comes to that because I don't have all the money in the world to hire people to do it for me. So I've just had to pick up the phone, and it's huge. You know, I have had a lot of successes, even though monetarily I don't feel like I'm there yet. You know, my product is in Walgreens. I've, won these awards. I've been recognized, and, it's just a matter of keep plugging away.
Right. I think you have a great attitude and a great outlook, and I think you definitely really believe strongly in your product, and it shows. And I think that your attitude of just, from every step of the way that you said it, it's just like, I've never thought like it's not going to be in here or there. Like, it's always a possibility, and you make it happen. And I think it's interesting that I think it's so wonderful that you look at every success as a success, because as I talk to different women, it's like some people just say monetarily, and I feel like the money comes at the end. It's, there's no overnight success story, and you just have to build on it. And once you figure out the right contacts and the right outlet, or how to do, whether it's social media marketing or whatever it does to make your product a success, it takes time to figure that out. So, congratulations.
Thanks. And Rachel, had I not, I'm not going to lie, it's been difficult. There's been ups and downs, and if I completely relied on the monetary aspect of it, I wouldn't still be in business. I would have given up a long time ago. But I think because of how my product came about, I've lived it. I carried my son around on oxygen, and I get emails from people saying, your bags made my life so much easier. It's just a backpack, they say, but they're like, it's more than a backpack. So I've had to draw off the successes I have had, even though it hasn't always, the monetary side hasn't come in yet, but I've had to. And, that's okay. I love it, helping people.
Yeah. It's
So.
Wonderful. How is your son Ty today? How old is Ty?
Ty is 7.5, and he is wonderful. He's full of life. He makes me laugh every day. Sometimes that strong will comes in. The strong will that every parent that has had a preemie that's been through the NICU experience has told me that their child is strong-willed, and, so he can be a little strong-willed some days, but he's our only child, and I feel blessed every day. We were told to tell him goodbye, that he wasn't going to make it.
God, so I can't imagine.
And a lot of the families that I talk to, that I deal with because of my business, their children have multiple issues, and, some of their children are still on oxygen, and, it breaks my heart, but at least I can have empathy when I'm dealing with them with my product. And even if my product can help them out in one little way, just by making it easier, then, so I count my blessings, because I know a lot of families haven't had it, so, it hasn't turned out as well as Ty. We sometimes have to do breathing treatments on him during the cold and winter months when he's sick. But, he was hospitalized one time after we got him home from the NICU for about a week because he got a cold. And it was, those first 2 years we didn't go anywhere, hardly at all. I didn't take him shopping. Because we just couldn't, take the chances of having him get sick because he was still so susceptible. But he's great.
Right. I'm so glad to hear that. I feel like you are very lucky. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. And is there any parting advice that you would like to give to the mom entrepreneur out there that's listening to your story?
I would just say that because I network with so many other mom entrepreneurs that I become friends with, and before you decide to jump into this, just know that it has to be what you really, really, really want to do. And it's not going to happen overnight. There might be some, rare percentage of it that it does, but it takes a lot of hard work and blood, sweat, and tears. And if you firmly believe that you're ready to jump on that ride, I think sometimes it looks like it does happen overnight for a lot of companies, and you kind of go in. I mean, I did. I went in with the false pretense that, oh, I'm in this big company and it's just going to take off. But if you believe in what your product is and what you're doing, and you know in your heart that that's what you want to do, then go for it. And reach out to other entrepreneurs and build that network, because a lot of people won't understand it. I have friends that work traditional jobs, and they don't get what I do, when it comes to my business, or why it's so difficult. They're like, oh, just go get a full-time job. You can't just do that when you have a business all the time. So
Right. No, very good advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
For those of you out there that enjoyed this interview and would like to hear more, you can go to www.bestmomproducts.com. And I want to thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing your story. It was touching, and it sounds like it's a great product that's still on the climb up. So I wish you a lot of success. And until next time, thank you.